See below? Click on the arrows. You gotta go right there. And then go up.
Hi, everyone.
There we go.
Just getting set here. Okay.
All right. We are live.
We are live. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Bon jeudi. Jeudi. Like jeudi.
Bon,
Jeudi.
like good Thursday?
Yeah, have a good Thursday. Passez une bonne jeudi.
Bon jeudi.
Avec jeudi.
Jeudi avec jeudi.
Jeudi à la jeudi. Maybe we should rename this. Jeudi avec jeudi.
Unless you're going to start training in French, I would say
Pourquoi pas?
Don't do that. Although if you need a French trainer,
Here I am.
you can do it.
Pushing my stuff. I'm bilingual. Hey, where do we see the comments here? Can we just, before we start, have a look? If someone comments?
They're right there.
Where?
Bottom right.
Comments. Bottom right. All right. Okay. We're going to have to zoom up and down with
We
that.
figured this out today to go live in the actual event, but now it looks different.
Yeah, we'll
than what
occasionally
Mark
look for
is used
comments.
to. Anyway, so thanks for joining us for our second week of our free Thursday lunch and learn trainings. This week we're going to talk about one-on-ones, which is a super important part of your role as a leader.
Critical.
And something that not all leaders
Do.
do. I know
Regularly.
in my career I've had to ask my bosses to meet with me on a regular basis.
You never
So
had to
far,
ask Vince Bozzo.
I never had to ask Vince Bozzo, no.
Because Vince was great. But anyways.
Um,
Shout out to Vince.
So you don't want to have to ask your I'm distracted by this because I keep having hair fall out.
We are live. Hey. That's what you
Anyway.
get with us.
You don't want to have to ask your boss. And if you do, you want to know what they're all about. So this is one of Mark's 5 servant leadership anchors and something that he talks about a lot and feels super passionate about. So
In
we're
my
gonna-
book, which you can get as a stocking
We're going to
stuffer.
talk about why they're important. We're going to talk about how often you should have them. We're going to talk about what the content should be. How do you structure them out? And how do you make it so that it's more than just a to-do list? Because I know for me, I've had that experience in the past where it's like you can't get access to the person often enough. So it was like, okay, well, just bring your list to our weekly one-on-one and we'll go through any answers to anything that you need the go-ahead for. And that was what the one-on-one was.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be a lot more than that.
Sure can.
To use as a performance tool and a growth tool. So
Sure can.
let's talk about that.
Cool. I'm going to just, every once in a while, check if you have any comments or questions. So feel free to put them in the comment section and we'll look at them. Be patient because we're figuring this out and it's at the bottom of the screen and we can't see it right now, but we'll get better at this next week, right? Okay. So yeah, let's talk about that. I'm happy to answer any questions and dive deep. But before we start, I think one of the things we want to talk about without taking too much time today is if you haven't heard of a connection meeting, learn about a connection meeting because one-on-ones start with trust. You got to remember, if you're bringing in an employee and you're the boss, there's already that being said without it being said. And so unless you're an approachable person who they trust, you're going to have to fight that uphill battle of all open and honest feedback where they can tell you where they're struggling and where they need help. Because if they don't, you can't solve that problem. And your goal is to solve that problem so they can grow the business as they grow their career. So if you haven't heard of connection meetings, dig in. But basically what they are, without taking too much time, is your opportunity to set the stage for the one-on-ones. Find out about the person's past. Find out about what a good leader looks like to them and a bad leader looks like from communication. Find out what they think the role is and what the expectations are. Find out where they want to go and understand that so your communication can be built around that. The learning opportunities can be built around that. And what it does is it creates the emotional bank account. And it starts with deposits because sometimes you're going to have negative feedback that you have to give to help someone grow. And if you've got enough of those positive deposits in the emotional bank account, you won't go bankrupt. And the connection meeting starts with deposits. It's all about them, where they want to go, what they like, understanding the roles so they're set up for success. It will make your one-on-ones much easier at the beginning. Having said all of that, let's talk about one-on-ones. What are we talking about?
I think that's it. I like that analogy about the emotional bank account.
Yeah, I stole it. I stole it from TELUS, and I can't even remember who I learned it from.
No, but it's
20 years
you don't
ago.
have to admit to that, but it's
Stole it. It's mine now.
it's a good way to think about it because we talked last week about how to be, a good boss and a good leader, and that it's not all people think of servant leadership as being kind of soft or like a little bit frilly, but you're going to have those tough conversations at some point too. And if you have that trust built up initially, then those conversations go easier.
Yeah, it could be a difficult conversation or it can be an ask. So, one of the things I talk about in the book, and without pushing the book too much, but it is available as a great stocking stuffer.
I've already said that.
Have I said that? Okay, good. Well, now you really know. Okay. Aside from the book, one of the examples I give in the book is like, as you're doing those connection meetings and you're finding out like maybe Jody, Thursday nights are the night she does pizza night at home with the kids. And for us, it's actually Friday. We do have a pizza night. And I learned about what's important with her and her family and what she likes to do. Now I know that I better be careful on Fridays with work. Because the one thing she told me is she loves being home at like 5:01 on Friday so she can have that time with her family. I know that now from the connection meeting because I said, what's important to you? What do you do outside of work? How do I protect that? What would be a bad day if I kept you away from something? That now when we've got a big meeting on Friday in 2 weeks that I know might go till 5:05 or 5:10, I can ask for the withdrawal. Hey, Jodes, I know it's pizza night. I want to give you the heads up. I'm not sure our strategy meeting next Friday will necessarily end at 5. Can you do me a favor and be okay to stick around a little longer if it goes longer? Now I can ask for that withdrawal because I've done all the deposits. We have this understanding, this trust. I'm recognizing where she wants to go. I'm pushing her where she needs to be in the context of her learning, that I can make that withdrawal and not put the bank account into bankruptcy. And so it's not only about difficult messaging, it's about asks you may have as a leader to get someone to go above and beyond. Maybe we should just talk about connection meetings today. No, I'm just teasing. But it's all critical. And too many leaders miss that, and then they start to get in these one-on-ones and wonder, because I've been there, until this TELUS experience. I went, wow, and that struck me almost 20 years ago. Like, oh my God, I don't do these. No wonder. Where you're like trying to get someone to increase sales and they're shutting down on you, and you can't figure out why. They don't trust me because every time we have these one-on-ones, it's always about Mark the leader trying to get a sales results. Nobody's motivated by that, at least not for long.
So one-on-ones.
Yes, one-on-ones.
So obviously we know, what is it? It's a one-on-one meeting you have with your team. Now, what happens if you have a big team?
Yeah.
It can be time-consuming. So let's say you're a leader and you have 8 direct reports. Are you taking 8 hours of every week to do one-on-one meetings?
I am. And I know that's going to be like, oh my God, like, how do you do that? So I should give you, because it is a great question, and it's one I get a lot when I train this, is like, oh my God, I've got so much on my plate. How do I find an hour every week? And I've got, 20 people on my team. Well, first of all, if servant leadership is going to work, everyone in the organization needs to be following the same behaviors and the same process. So the CEO just has to do it with their C-suite executives. And their C-suite executives got to do it with their VPs, and their VPs got to do it with their directors, and the directors do it with the managers, and the managers do it with their teams. Mm-hmm. So the level that's really going to be a lot is manager down to team, right? That's where you might get teams of 10 and 15 people. Then it's okay to say, I can't spend 10 to 15 hours of my week just doing one-on-ones. By the way, I would, just to be clear. Because if you don't change behavior, you're not going to change your business result. What else can you be doing as a leader to have a bigger impact on your business than setting your people up for success? That's just my opinion, but I understand that's not everyone's reality. So that's where you can say, hey, listen, I got 15 people. I can't do 15 hours of one-on-one every week. I'm not going to get my job done. That's when you start to say, okay, do we customize this into a half an hour and go every week? Mm-hmm. Or do we say we're going to do them every 2 weeks and we're going to give you that full dedicated hour and set the expectation up with your team? I have a construction company that I consult with. They have that exact problem. Like the site super has got tons of employees the general manager, tons of employees and tons of trades to talk to. It's not realistic that they're going to be able to sit down with everybody. So they do them once a month. But those once a month are highly impactful. They follow the process, they prepare the coaching forms, and they have an open door policy that if something really does come up within a month, you can come see me.
Right.
And that's okay because normally you respect the 1 month window. But you should be doing them every week unless your team's huge. With your next level reports, and they should be doing it with their next level reports. What's more important than improving your people's behavior to grow your business? I don't know. People do stuff. They always have. Strategy doesn't do stuff. Process doesn't do stuff. people do stuff. And so what's more important than training your people and helping them get better at doing the stuff that makes them more productive and helps your organization grow?
Do you think part of those one-on-one meetings is delegation of tasks that you can free up your time to be able to have all those one-on-ones?
Absolutely. There is a time and a place for delegation in those one-on-ones. It's one of the 5 key pieces that I teach in a one-on-one. The first one is really about, hey, let's review last week. And numbers are okay. It's okay to have KPIs. Dogs are enjoying this.
I think there's a delivery.
No, so I'll just keep talking. She's going to go, I'll just keep talking. I do that. KPIs are important because you're there to run a business, and you have a boss who has a board that's expecting results. And so, I normally start a one-on-one by saying, okay, here are the numbers. Now let's talk about what caused them last week. What'd you do really well? And if I was there with you, where could I have helped? And we talk about the context of the past week. And then
the numbers meaning what? The sales? Like, 'cause it's not always sales.
Could be sales. It could be customer service results. It could be financial performance. It could be...
So you as the leader go into that meeting with some of your own information prepared?
To start. But people take ownership in behaviors when they take ownership in the numbers. So one of the things you want to transfer as a leader as you go through these one-on-ones is teach people how to prepare those numbers. I still to this day remember Thomas Bata. Okay, so remember Bata Shoes? Okay, they also owned Athletes World. I was a store manager at Athletes World, and all my friends who are store managers are going to remember this story. Thomas Bata was into his 80s. I was running a flagship store at Toronto Eaton Centre, and Thomas Bata would be coming for a visit. And Thomas Bata, we had just invested in like a new POS system that had reporting, but Thomas always came in looking for what was called the prosperity card. And the prosperity card had 3 basic columns, okay? So it had footwear sales, apparel sales, and accessory sales. And it was in this leather binder, and you had to write in green when you hit your week. You had to write in black when you were flat, and you had to write in red when you missed your week. And you had to literally write it down in this old style book. And Thomas's thought process, which I still think is perfect today, is if I write it down, I own it. I'm aware, and I got to put that red friggin' pen down in footwear, and I better fix my footwear sales. And that's all Thomas would talk about. He'd come in and look at the prosperity card, and then he'd slowly walk you out onto the floor, and he says, what are you doing to change it? And that became about behaviors. Holy shit, we got to change our shoe wall. No wonder my footwear's down. Everybody else is selling basketball shoes, and they're on the far right side of the wall. No one's getting to it. We got cross trainers at the front. Let's flip the shoe wall. Or let's look at the pyramids on the floor. Oh my God, like my best-selling shoe is carved in behind a bunch of clothes in a shoe pyramid. We got to give that exposure. And if it was apparel, and so all the behavior change came out of knowing the numbers. So to answer your question, I do this long answers, but it's such a great question. Yes, I do the KPIs at first, but then I have the employee come with the KPIs. Then they start to take accountability of the result. And then we can do the valuable stuff, which is talk about the behaviors. So where we were was results last week. And then we talk about, hey, what's coming up on your radar this week so I can understand it relative to the business result. So I can train you or give you guidance or support and tools to hit the numbers. And then we talk about any recognition opportunities for the previous week. That was great, that I don't want to forget at performance review time. It was that important. Or any consistent behaviors that are becoming a problem that I got to write down to put accountability to that. Also for review time if you don't change your behavior. And I'm probably jumping ahead to where you want to go, but bear with me. We'll double track back because it answers your question. Then I say, what do you need from me this week to be successful with your tasks? And I then find out what they have on the go, and I make sure they can deliver that, or I help them reprioritize. And then to answer your question, it's my turn. Hey, here are the things I absolutely need from you this week. And it's my delegation ask time after we've developed and helped you succeed with the numbers and set up a plan. And I always leave that conversation with, how do you feel about this? And if someone says, I feel great, remember you're their boss. So that is their default. They don't want you to think they can't do it. I always ask, why do you feel great about it? And what are you going to attack first? And how are you feeling about that? And so what I'm doing is I'm setting the environment for them to buy into the prioritize items that we both agree upon and giving them the support to succeed. So yes, we delegate, but we delegate last. and we ensure that employees set up for success. So they don't come to your next one-on-one and say, "Oh, I did item number 1 and number 3," and you're like, "Dude, I needed 2, 4, 6, 9, and 10." We create that prioritization as I delegate.
When do you go through their list of things they need your A-OK on? Prior to delegation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think you need to prioritize like what they need access to you for, so that they feel like you're there for them to answer their questions, right? Before you pile more work onto them.
Yeah, it's just like a sales funnel, right? We start at the top and we start high level, and it's about them and the numbers and what they need and what the success. And at the bottom of the funnel, as the leader, like to make sure they're set up for the following week, I have to make sure my update items get out there. Mm-hmm. It's because those tasks I know are the priority as the leader of the department. So I always go last, and I do just before that say, what do you have on the go? How can I help you? That helps me be proactive with my ask to say, hey, you sound like you have a busy week. So I had 5 things for you, but I really need these 2 done. And so we can get on the same page moving forward.
Right. And what are you doing as a leader, kind of in the back end to track their progress, performance? Like, are you keeping extra notes in the back end so that you have them at performance review time or quarterly review or whatever it might be?
Great question. First part, I'm always keeping notes. And so,
I say that because I feel like a lot of leaders probably don't do that. And
right.
Then they wait till it's like, oh shoot, performance reviews are due next week. And then they're going back through their brain of like, what did this person do that was good? What did they do
right.
that I didn't think was great? And it's like,
and
they're trying to do this like recollection process that might not be, the most accurate to what actually happened. So.
Yeah, and that is a trap leaders fall into, and you nailed it on the head, is they write a review based on what they can remember.
Yeah.
Well, we remember what happened the last 3 or 4 weeks. So imagine I had 48 great weeks, but 4 bad ones. I'm going to get a negative performance review, and I'm going to have my backup, and the leader's going to go, what's their problem? Mm-hmm. Well, hold on, because you have a process that you haven't followed to truly give me a yearly review. And so remember I mentioned that third box was recognition and areas of development. And what I teach the organizations that I work with is that box shouldn't be filled every week. You should not be like filling in, hey, thanks for coming in because I got to fill the recognition box, or hey, you could have done better by selling 2 more widgets. Like, those are themes that are for your performance review. So those are the above and beyond. So, you see those getting filled once a month. Hey, Jodes, like, tremendous job with our marketing last month. It created a delta on my online training program by 47 courses. We got 2 new corporate clients and we sold $300. Your program of going to market with these videos and where you communicated really created that result. And we're going to have a great first quarter. Thank you. That gets in the recognition box.
Right.
That is the stuff that in March I want to remember in December. Mm-hmm. So I've built the program that's there, and you just need to be transparent with the employee and say, here's what gets in that box. Mm-hmm. Showing up for work doesn't get in the recognition box. Mm-hmm. Making one mistake doesn't get you in the development box. Consistent behaviors that generate the result are what get in this box, and it's for your performance review. I don't want to forget. It's going to help me write it properly. The other notes that I keep that solves an earlier question that you asked is like, what do you do when you have all these people to coach?
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a file going in your filing system on each of your staff so that you keep those notes?
Close unused application. Your live stream has experienced performance issues. Try and close any other applications. Okay. Where are we here? Are we in this one? Hi, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. No, just give us one quick second. We're going to close this because it's creating issues with our live. Okay, we're back. So, sorry, could you repeat that question? I got distracted there by technology.
Like within your own filing systems, do you actually keep a file on each employee so you can deposit that information in there and you have it all in one spot? Or like, how do you actually keep track of it?
That's
individual systems, I guess. But what did you, and you're kind of old school when it comes to systems. Maybe people keep a file in their desktop or something.
She called me old. She didn't call me old school. She called me old. I've always been 10 years older than
Mark
you.
Mark still handwrites his prospect list instead of using an Excel spreadsheet. Drives me a little bit.
Yeah, but I do that because of what I said earlier, and Thomas Bada, that takes ownership to write that down. I'm committed.
It's different than typing it.
Typing's in an Excel spreadsheet that gets lost. I use technology. I use CRM systems. Come on.
I know
But-
you do.
But I do believe, if it's a valid point, there are things that I'm going to use that pen, and I'm doing it consciously because it makes me take ownership in it. Now, the question was the process and filing.
How do you keep track?
So again, it goes back and it solves your problem about like, what do I do if I got to meet with all these people? When I start a one-on-one form, and it's blank for the next week, it's in the employees folder, right? So I have all the weeks done, and next week's blank one's there. And as things come up, as I engage either with a customer or in a meeting that I need to address with them or with them directly while I'm observing, it gets written into my one-on-one.
So you have an actual form.
Correct. 5 steps.
It's not just like put it in your notebook and talk about it.
No, gosh, no, yeah. And great, sorry, and I assume everyone does that and they don't. You're right. So the 5 steps that I'm talking about are in an actual form that sit in a folder that I update through the week so I'm prepared for my one-on-one. And here's what I do with those. That is a big tip I'd love to give any of your leaders that are doing it today or aren't and want to start doing it is I pull out last week's first before we do the one-on-one. So if there's any outstanding items that I promised you and I haven't done them, I acknowledge it at the beginning of our one-on-one. Hey, last week we talked about this and I didn't do it. I want you to know I knew about that. I can't get a hold of the CEO till Thursday. We'll talk about it next week. I also use it as a starting point for my next one-on-one with the employee. Say, here's what you committed to. How did it go? And so the cascading process keeps us on the same page and keeps each of us accountable. And then from process perspective, Jody, where I think you're going with this, is this process now, when I go to write a performance review and I train my leaders on how to write a performance review, before we ever sit down in front of everyone, we're pulling out the research. Open the folder, and I'm not reading every one-on-one. I'm going to the recognition and the development box. And if I've done 1 or 2 notes a quarter, guess what? I got 8 to 10 pieces of content that I can talk about where they've done really well that I've already talked to you about, and I recognize you live in the moment. And that builds trust when we have our review. I didn't forget it. This is not me finding something to beat you up over if it's a development opportunity or something new to just say good job. No, we dove deep. And our performance review is a summary of the year. And you deserve that as an employee to feel good about your performance. And you deserve it when I say, here's what I need you to work on in 2022. As we discussed in March, this. And then it showed up again in June, this. I tell you, Jody, you're still struggling with it. It's not a game breaker. It's not killing our business. You're having a great year, but it's a development opportunity for you that we got to get over that hurdle. So we're going to do the following thing in Q1 to put this to rest. I don't know. To me, those are the performance reviews that you sit back and go, my boss gets me. It's fair. This is fair. He knows or she knows what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and I can't debate it. I might not like it, but it's real. And I got to tell you, I haven't had too many of those performance reviews given to me in my life. No. So like everything I've built, I'm going to take my ball and go home. No, but I'm taking my negative experiences and I'm trying to make sure they stop. Bob Hunter used to give me great performance reviews and it had nothing to do with the form. Bob used to know everything about me because he talked to me all the time. And Bob could call my shit. Lisa Larder was the same. Now, Lisa Larder always had a process because we were at TELUS Mobility and those processes were built and we were all trained on this stuff. But Lisa could beat me up, so to speak, where others couldn't because I couldn't deny it. We had talked about it for a year. Shit, I got to work on this stuff. You're right, boss. Thanks for having my back.
I just don't feel like I've had a lot of bosses, though, that, like, in the one-on-one itself, we talk about development opportunities. Like, this is a development opportunity for you, or where you get more than, like, yeah, you did a good job with this, but...
Sorry, I'm just... Hi, Tanya. I'm agreeing to exactly what you said.
Yeah, I just don't feel, I feel like every one-on-one I've had has been more of like a weekly checklist, go through, what do you need the go-ahead on? What do you need my opinion on? What do you need my support on moving forward? Great, nice to see you back to work.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like I've really ever had those one-on-one opportunities where you talk about this is a development opportunity or that there's any real documentation of recognition or... I don't know. And I guess implementing that more structured process of using the form would do that. But some people might have to proactively push that to their leader.
Yeah. And that leads
right?
to the question.
And that leads back to the timing thing, because we also talked about how much time it can take, and you would argue that it's the most important part of a leader's
Yeah, I wouldn't even
career.
argue.
Right.
It's the fucking most important
But
part.
okay, you don't need to F-bomb.
I
But
get
then,
emotional. Sorry for the F-bomb.
but we talked about the time it takes, right? But now we've also added extra time, because you're talking about now you fill out the form, you come with the numbers, which means you have to go get those numbers and research before you meet with this person. Like, there's some preparation involved.
Yes.
Prior to this one-on-one that actually will take the leader even more time, and you will still argue that
I still will.
the most important.
But I love that you play like devil's advocate, because that's what I deal with my clients. That's the biggest hurdle I got to get them over.
Yeah.
Here's my thing, and I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to get on my soapbox. Everybody, bear with me. If you were Richard Petty at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, let's go back, right? Mm-hmm. And you were the CEO, and you were busy. You had all this stuff to do. And your biggest problem was John Ferguson wasn't winning with the Leafs. Okay? And back then, pre-Brian Colangelo, it was Rob Babcock. The teams weren't doing well. Well, Richard Petty didn't spend his time saying, well, I'm going to get out on the floor and watch concessions. Mm-hmm. Because I got to see how our food and beverage sales are going. And I'm going to go to 2 more board meetings and present 3 more times. The focus is going back and making sure behaviors are being changed to change the result. That's the equivalent in a normal business is you say, well, I'm going to do all my process stuff and forget about the people who produce the result on the court or on the surface.
Right. But the leader has to flip the thinking in that is the wisest time investment, because the people are the doers.
Yes.
Right.
But here's what I struggle. Why is that so hard?
Yeah.
Like, I hate to sound whiny, but why is that so What's your job as a leader when you have a team that's more important than making your team friggin' better at what they do? Another report?
They get so wrapped up in their own to-dos, in carving out their own...
Because it's about them.
Yeah.
And that's not what servant leadership is. And the biggest irony of the whole thing is the more you do with your people, the better it is going to be for you.
Yeah.
The better your result's going to be, you know? Guess what? Don't friggin' go schmooze with that client for 2 hours over a lunch when you already know you're going to retain that business. Get back in the friggin' office and talk to your team. That's the stuff that pisses me off. But I've watched it everywhere. And listen, I am no friggin'.
You love a good lunch just as much as the next.
I have liked a good, but what I worry about when I take these stances, people don't think that I've screwed it up too. I absolutely have, over and over again. But I've learned, and that's the one that eats at me. I see people get promoted and they have no idea how to lead their people. Mm-hmm. They know how to manage politics. They know how to lead up, and they know how to lead sideways. Mm-hmm. But ask their team if they're getting better at what they do and if they trust their leader. That's a different response. Mm-hmm. And the quicker you can do these things and get organized to focus not all of your efforts, because we all have days, like I've been there. I've had to develop budgets and strategic plans and do customer retention strategies. I get all that and build training programs. But what was more important than my 8 people selling our houses at Fusion Homes? Mm-hmm. Like, what was more important than that? They're the ones sitting in the sales center with the customer. And my after-sales service team are the one picking up the phone, getting yelled at, and crying. Mm-hmm. What's more important to change your business result than helping those people succeed? I don't friggin' get it. Okay. So I'm trying to help and create change.
We're out of time.
Come on! I want to talk about what's wrong with everybody. No, I'm just teasing.
We're out of time for today. But thank you for joining us. If you're watching the replay, let us know in the comments just so we can see who's around. Thanks to those of you who did join us, and we'll be back next Thursday. What are we going to talk about next?
I just want to thank Tanya Avaledo for her comments, and don't welcome me into the HR world just yet, because I don't think I have the skill set for the real valuable stuff in HR, but I do believe that if I was to come back in another life, I'd love to be in skills development within HR. Yeah. That would be, when I think about everything I've done as a leader on the business responsibility, I love it all, but it's all come from the foundation of behaviors, a process, focus on the team. It'll create the result, and that normally sits in skills development in HR. So I'd love to do that. So thank you. Welcome me to that. Sorry.
What do you want to talk about next week?
Do we do a deeper dive on the connection meeting? You know what? Let's wait.
What's your next anchor after the one-on-one?
Well, we missed connection
Coaching during the
meeting.
game.
Connection meeting's the first one. One-on-one's the second. So maybe we come back to connection meeting at some point. But let's do the third then, which is coaching during the game. So Tom Peters, I believe it's Tom Peters, wrote a book in the 80s, and he introduced management by wandering around. And then I worked for a fella at the printing house, the owner of the company, the patriarch, Earl O'Born. And I'll give him full credit for this. Earl was a big believer and sat me down and started to talk about management by wandering around. And the first thought was, the old guy's crazy. Like, that's not a thing. Like, that's your leadership theory? But he was brilliant. It made total sense. And we don't do enough of it as leaders. So we don't get out there and see the behaviors we're training and find out the errors in our process so we can fix them in the experience with the customer and get the filter through the eyes of our frontline staff who know it better than we do, so we can come back and strategize and process and coach accordingly. Anyways, but management by wandering around has always bugged me. I don't think it's, the process is great, the name, just the name. So I've tried to modernize that thought process and called it coaching during the game. And the parallel to sports is, you don't see coaches cross their arms at a timeout and say nothing. You don't see them go into the dressing room and say, we're down 3-2, go get a goal and leave. They're coaching behaviors as they're being observed during the game. And so I'm trying to translate that to business. So yeah, let's do that one because I love that one. Let's do that one next.
Okay. Because that's then how you build the credibility too with your staff, right? Like you're walking the talk.
Yeah. And there's a part of coaching during the game, and I know we want to finish. We're at 31 minutes, but I'll leave you with this teaser. Just like the coaching sessions, there is accountability, right? Like you do get out to give your team feedback and see what's not going well and coach them live in the moment and try and get them to change the behavior.
In between the one-on-ones, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do these all the time. You can do these once a month. Get out on the sales floor for a lunch and watch your team go. I always, and we'll talk about it in detail, but when you're there, how do you empathize with the job so you can make it easier for them to do the job? And I call that picking up the broom. Like literally, like Denise Tari at Fusion Homes. You know how I feel about Denise. One of the best salespeople you're ever going to meet. And Debbie and Deborah and Chris, and they're all phenomenal. But I remember the experience with Denise because it was high rise. And I'd go into those launches and I'd get coffee and I'd print off contracts. And I'd do whatever I had to do to stay out of Denise's way to let her do what she did best, which was sell. Now, what I was doing as that happened, and here's your teaser for next week, I was observing Denise's behavior and knew that, hey, this is a recognition visit. Like it was with most of the sales team at Fusion. They're all freaking awesome. This is a recognition. There's less coaching going on, but this is a process opportunity. Like, hey, we're printing off handwritten contracts. We're putting them in folders. What do we do with technology to make this easier? How do I fix this process so Denise can sell more often? And so coaching during the game not only is about coaching your employee, it's kind of improving your business.
Improving your systems and processes because you're seeing it firsthand.
Right.
And finding feedback opportunities for either recognition or areas for improvement.
Yeah, because you'd see owners say, oh, this team's just complaining. Like they just don't want to do the job and they're lazy.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, hold on. Let's go walk a mile in the shoes.
Okay.
And let's validate. Okay, yeah, we're going to do that next week.
We're going to do that next week.
All right, fine. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We hope you have a great Thursday. Bon jeudi, jeudi.
Bon jeudi.
We're going to get really good at this technology eventually. Cindy Cooper looking good. Hi, Cindy. Bye, everybody.